all the AI companies and all the AI CEOs told you that they're going to replace your jobs with AI. AI is taking over everything. And then quietly, behind the scenes, they created a new fugazi, a new role at the very same time. And everyone's talking about this new role. It is called a forward deployed engineer. What the heck is that? Right? AI companies are hiring for it. Startups are hiring for it. Enterprise companies are starting to care a little bit about it. And people are acting like it's some sort of mysterious new AI job that came out of nowhere. But it's not that mysterious. A forward deployed engineer is literally a consultant who can actually engineer and build. And that is it. Not a consultant who just makes slides, not a software engineer who sits in the corner or in their basement writing code with no customer context. It's someone that sits in the middle. They go close to the customer, they understand the business problem, they design the system, they build the solution, they deploy it, and they fix it when it breaks. And then they take what they learned and they turn it into something repeatable. That is the job. It sounds new because the job title is new to a lot of people, but the underlying problem is very old. Companies have always had this problem. We bought this X technology, but now how do we actually make it work inside of our business? And AI amplifies this to the next level, right? These ChatGPTs and OpenAIs and Anthropics, they thought they can just launch these new models and companies are just going to adopt it and integrate into their systems. The reality is, in real enterprises, systems, integrations, the way companies work, it's very messy. You can't just pluck in a model and just deploy it into a business and think everything's going to work, right? That's not reality. So they then realize, okay, companies aren't adopting it as fast as we want it to. So we need to now provide the market with a new job that's going to help integrate our tools, our services, our models into businesses directly. But we can't say it's a consultant, right? Because people know consultants don't do any real work. You get the idea. So they had to bring out the new role, repackaged, similar to a consultant, but slightly redesigned, right? And that's basically the gap that the forward deployed engineer solves, right? So it sits right in the middle. It basically enables the businesses to adopt these new tools and models and make sure it works in their context, right? And then automates it and integrates it. So let's kind of go a little bit deeper into the problem. A company buys an AI product, right? Or they get access to a frontier model, or the leadership says something like, hey, we need to use AI across the business, right? How many of you have heard that term? Every single business is talking about it. Everyone is very excited. So what happens? They build a demo. The demo looks amazing. The founder shows it to the board. Everyone starts to clap. Wow. Revolutionary, right? Some prompting, some output, input, process, output. Whoa. Never seen that before. Then they try to put it inside the actual business, right? We start to integrate it with legacy systems and everything falls apart because the data is very messy. The workflow is very unclear. The users don't even know how to use it, right? The security team is very worried and they say, hey, no way, Jose, we ain't letting you do this. The model gives inconsistent outputs. The integration needs to connect to 5 to 10 different internal systems. So nobody knows where it should run. Nobody even knows how to monitor it. Nobody knows how to secure it. Nobody knows who even owns this when it breaks. And that is the real problem. The problem is not, can we access AI? Right now, in 2026, everyone and their mum can access AI. The bigger problem is, can we turn AI into a working system inside a real business? That's what this new consultant role, the forward deployed engineer or the FDE, is there to solve. And this is really why the role is getting so much attention, because it's allegedly here to solve the biggest gap of AI demo and AI working in production. So that's really where the money and opportunity is right now. All right, let's compare it. Old consultant versus new one, which is why I think this role is really interesting, because in a way, it's just a new way of selling consulting, right? Let's be honest. A lot of companies do not want a 90-page strategy deck anymore. They don't want someone to come in and tell them what they should do and then just leave. They want the thing to just work, right? Especially with AI, because there's so much adoption, right? And everyone feels like they're falling behind. So they're paying big money for people to come in and just make it happen. But making it happen is so difficult. The old way of doing it, or the old consultant will say, hey, here's my recommendation. But a new forward deployed engineer will say, here is the working system. Or at least that's what they're hired to do. There's a big difference there, right? Because this is really where the title becomes a little bit more powerful. The forward deployed engineer, right? It sounds like someone who's on the ground, is close to the business problem, building the actual thing. And that's basically what it is. It's consulting rebranded for the AI era with a much higher technical bar, because you can't hide behind slides, right? You need to build, you need to deploy, you need to integrate, you need to debug, you need to talk to the customer. Now, from my experience consulting for companies, right, I'm not 90-page slide deck person. I've never built a slide deck in my life. Okay, maybe sometimes. But when I'm consulting one-on-one for startups and Fortune 500 government agencies, and we're building their technologies and their platforms and integrations, right, I'm always very close to the leadership, understand what they want, and then I work with the teams to help them build and design the solution. Right. So I like being close to the business problem. So as a consultant or FDE, you really need to own the outcome, especially in the AI era, because the business models of consulting are completely changing. It's no longer time and materials. It's about, can you deliver the outcome? And, the OpenAI have their own description of it. They're kind of not describing it as someone who just gives AI advice. They describe it for a deployed engineer as someone owning discovery, technical scoping, system design, build, and production rollout with customers directly. So it's a really diverse and I'd say end-to-end role, and it owns the whole life cycle. So it's not, hey, tell the customer what they should do. It's actually, hey, go and build this and make sure it works inside the customer's business. So what does a forward deployed engineer actually do technically? So there are 6 steps that I've kind of broken down. Number 1 is really understanding the problem, not take the service level problem that the customers usually think the problem is. You really need to understand the process, the workflow, what's actually happening on the ground. Right? That's the real problem. The customers will always say, from my experience working with plenty of businesses, whatever they think is the problem, it's never really the problem until you start asking the questions and really be thinking from first principles. And nowadays in 2026, everyone will say, or every customer will say that we want AI, but that doesn't really mean anything, right? We have to really think about, where do we even use AI? Why do we want it? What problem are we trying to solve? What workflow is broken? Where are people wasting time in the business or customers? What process is slow? Where's the risk? Where does the business lose money? Where does the customer experience break? What decisions need to happen faster? And from what I do with clients and the business that we work with, we really think about, where can we unlock more revenue for the business first? It's like, okay, what's slowing us down from making 10 times more revenue, or let's say 2 times more revenue? Where's the bottleneck in the business that's stopping us from growing to then make more money? Because we can do that, right? You can actually start with AI in a really powerful use case that a company is actually having a direct problem with. And let's say the C-suite is aware, the CEO is aware, the engineering leadership is aware, the customers are aware. Okay, this is the biggest problem that I'm facing today. This is maybe it's hiring, right? We need more talent. Okay, well, why don't we help the recruitment team find better quality candidates so we can then speed up the hiring process, right? Where is the business bottleneck? What's the biggest pain the business is facing right now? And could we start there? Show AI as a case study. Anyway, so that's the first part, understanding the problem. That's the first biggest job. Because if you don't understand the problem, you will always be building the wrong thing. Number 2 is scoping the system. So this is where we turn some vague business pain into an actual technical scope, i.e., what are we building? What are we not building? What data do we need? What systems do we need to connect to? Who are the users? What does success look like? What does version 1 need to do? What can wait and what cannot, right? Now, this is very important because a lot of AI projects will die from having very vague scope. Everyone wants the magical AI system that does basically everything. But a forward deployed engineer really has to bring that back to, what is the smallest useful system that we can actually deploy and gain confidence about AI inside the business? Number 3 is designing the architecture. So this is where the engineer actually starts. So where does the app run? Where does the data live? What APIs are involved? Well, how does authentication work? How do permissions work? Where do we log activity? How do we monitor for failures? All of these non-functional requirements that we have to be aware of when we're designing solutions. Like, how do we secure the data? What happens if the model gives us bad answers? What happens if the tool calling fails? What happens if there's a big spike in cost, which obviously with these agentic AI systems, there's a big risk to that. That makes this role much closer to something like cloud engineering, solution architecture, DevOps, system design, and technical consulting, a lot closer to those areas than most people realize. Because the model is only one part of the equation, right? The real product is a system around the model that we're building. Number 4 is building the actual solutions. This is really the part that separates the FDE from the slide deck consultant. One, they actually build, maybe that means using Python or APIs or RAG or internal tools or agent workflows, MCP, right? Maybe connecting Claude or GPT to the company's internal systems, right? It's someone that's very diverse and can do a bit of everything, right? So Anthropic have also a description of an FDE, and they talk about working inside of a customer's systems to build production application with Claude models, delivering technical artifacts like MCP servers, sub-agents, and agent skills used in production workflows. So that tells you the job is not that, hey, play around with AI. It's to build technical artifacts that actually get used. Number 5 is to deploy it. So this is where things get a little bit more real. So Everyone can build a demo, right? Production is very, very hard and very, very messy. Production means access control, it means security, it needs monitoring, latency, cost, failure, data privacy, auditability, user adoption, right? Enterprise environments are so messy, which is why when AI started to come out, everyone was like, oh, AI is going to take everyone's jobs. Like anyone that's worked in technology for a long time, I've worked in tech for 11 years, Fortune 500, startups, governments. I know how slow these businesses are and how slow they are to adopt new technology, especially something so powerful, and how messy these environments are. So really, to be able to actually deploy things in production and make it production ready is why these FDEs need a lot of like infrastructure skills and architecture skills, right? Specifically cloud architecture skills, because a lot of these systems, especially when you can see what's happening now with AWS and OpenAI is enabling all their models and their services and features to be deployed directly on AWS, and customers can use it because it's enterprise grade and people just trust cloud platforms way more. So if you can now use these models directly on AWS, it will increase the adoption rate basically. Same with Claude and Anthropic, you can use all their tools and features and products natively on AWS. So the reason that this is very much closer to infrastructure and cloud architecture is because you're deploying real systems, right, into real businesses. So you need to understand where these systems live and how do they operate. Now, any modern business nowadays is running on the cloud. Number 6 is feed the learning back into the product. So a very good FDE is not just doing custom work forever. They are learning from the field. They see what the customers keep asking for. They see where the deployments keep breaking. They see which patterns repeat. They see what should become a product feature, right? And then they bring that back to the company. Anthropic described this as identifying and codifying repeatable deployment patterns and contributing insights back to the product and engineering team. So just having that continuous communication from engineering to product to customers, having that loop, right? Having that open communication between teams, which is why I think this FDE role sits in a very interesting place inside of a business. It's very close to the customer, it's very close to the product, it's very close to the engineering, but it's also very close to the real business problem. This is basically how I've always worked anyway. Like, so to me, it seems like, when I'm consulting with companies, I think it's very odd that people are doing this now. I feel like this has always been a case with really top engineering talent. Whereas I guess, when you're working for these big consulting companies, slide decks, anyway. Whatever. So that's basically where their value is. They understand, they ship, they codify, they repeat, and they own all 6. Why are companies really hiring these FDEs, right? Why are they hiring for this role right now? The simple answer is that AI adoption is very messy and companies don't want demos. They've seen plenty of demos, right? They don't want another chatbot. They don't want another AI pilot that dies after 2 weeks. They want one thing and one thing only, which is outcomes. And the problem is that traditional consultants often can't build. Majority can't build, right? Traditional engineers often don't want to deal with customers. Sales teams, they can sell the dream, but they can't always deliver the system. Product teams can build a platform, but they don't always understand every customer's messy internal environment. So the FDE will sit across this gap. They are the bridge. The business problem on one side, working technical system on the other side, and then they are the person that connects both, which makes this role really valuable. It reduces risks, it reduces handoff, it reduces confusion, it reduces the chance that a customer buys AI and never really gets any value from it. And this is why we're seeing it everywhere, right? Even reporting on the role has framed it as booming. A lot of reports are coming out around the role and it's been framed as booming in the AI market. Also noting that obviously from the criticism point of view, this very much looks like glorified professional services, which it is, but it's like a level above that where the professional services person, i.e. the consultant, is not a fraud. It can actually go and deliver and build and be integrated inside the business. The truth is, it is professional services, which is funny because they said that's like the biggest part that AI is going to impact. Now they've made a new role around it. Now, the difference is that now the professional services industry, specifically consultants, they don't have any choice but to be technical enough to build real systems. Being technical pays a lot of money. I'm listening to podcasts and I always hear like these big CEOs and big billionaires and big ballers, they're all trying to sound very technical on these podcasts and stuff. And it's like, dude, I can tell any technical person that has some business acumen and, they've been through it around because they understand what they're doing. They can hear other people talk about technical stuff and like, hey, bro, you're not technical, right? And that's why it's so funny hearing all these AI takes. Because like I said, if you've been in industry, you know that this stuff takes a lot of time to adopt and actually work in production. So yes, if you're a consultant right now, you better start upskilling into technical stuff, basically. Okay, so what skills do you need, right? Let's keep it very clear. So firstly, you need to have business understanding. If you don't understand the business problem, you will always build the wrong thing. So you need to understand about revenue, cost, speed, risk, operations, compliance, compliance, customer experience. Well, you need to know enough about what actually matters. Secondly is discovery. So here we need to be asking the right questions and not be content from the vague answers that we get. So when someone says we want to use AI, we need to ask for what, where, who, what does it replace? What happens if it goes wrong? What does success look like? What's the cost of not solving this? That's the discovery. System design is another one. We need to turn messy requirements into a working system. So inputs, outputs, data flow, APIs, permissions, scalability, trade-offs, right? This is really why people who understand architecture here have a big, big advantage. Fourth, cloud and infrastructure. So again, we cannot ignore cloud because if we're building and deploying customer systems, we need to understand infrastructure, right? Compute, storage, networking, databases, security, reliability, right? Cost. These are all core skills because the model itself is not the whole product, right? The infrastructure around it makes it production ready and makes it usable. Fifth, AI integration. So we need to understand about practical AI, so LLMs, RAG, agents, tool calling, evaluation, latency, right? Context, right? We have to know about all of this stuff. Sixth, security and product thinking. So what data is being sent, who can get access, what gets logged, can users abuse it, what happens if the model gives the wrong output, how do you monitor it, how do you roll it back, how do you stop it from doing something stupid. We also have communication, and this might be very, very underrated because in this role, you're going to be speaking to execs, engineers, product teams, security teams, and end users. So if you can't communicate, you won't be able to do this job. All right, so let's just compare FDE versus engineer versus consultant. And here's the easiest mental model to have. A normal engineer, right, he builds the product. A consultant advises the customer, and an FDE builds it with the customer. That is it, right? This is why it's not a normal software job. You're not working from a clean backlog. You're not just picking up tickets. You're not just building a feature in isolation. Right? You're working inside ambiguity. You're working inside the unknown. Customer doesn't always know what they want. Requirements are messy, environments are messy, politics are very messy, data is messy, and your job is to create a working system alongside all of this stuff happening. That's why the role is not for everyone. If you want a quiet coding task with zero customer interaction, then you will definitely hate this job. If you like solving messy problems, talking to people, building fast, and seeing the business impact, you will definitely love this role. But don't misunderstand the job. It's not just AI, it's not just software, it's not just consulting, it's all of those things, right? It's a big overlap, and that overlap is where the opportunity is going to be. So what does this mean for you, right? Never chase any sort of job titles, right? We always want to be building the capabilities that we have because the job titles will always change. Today it's FDE, tomorrow be something else, right? AI architect, AI solutions architect, AI cloud engineer, whatever, right? The title here is not the point. It's all about the capability. Can you understand a business problem? Can you translate it into a system? Can you build the first version? Can you deploy it into a real environment? Can you secure it? Can you monitor it? Can you explain it to technical and non-technical people? Can you turn what you learned into a repeatable pattern? This is what companies are paying for. And if you want to prepare for this kind of work, the path is not very complicated, right? You have to learn cloud and infrastructure properly, learn system design, learn how AI applications are being built, build projects to solve problems, deploy them, document the architecture, explain the trade-offs, and practice actually talking about business outcomes, right? That is the roadmap here. Become useful because this role really rewards people who can walk into the chaos and they can give the company clarity. So just to wrap up, what is AFDE? It's a hands-on technical consultant. It's someone who goes close to the customer, who understands the real problem, designs a system, builds a solution, deploys it, and feeds the learning back into the product. It's a new job title for an old pattern. Companies don't just need technology, they need outcomes. And in the AI era, the outcome is no longer a slide deck. It's a working system. And that's why everyone suddenly cares about this role, right? And if you're trying to build a career in tech right now, this should definitely open your eyes. Just to clarify, it's not for beginners, right? The future will always belong to people who can connect tools to real problems. So system design, understanding the problem, infrastructure, AI integration, communication, right? This is all part of the stack. And if you build the stack, you're going to be very valuable no matter what the job title is going to be called. As always, I'm rooting for you. Let me know what you thought in the comments of this role, and good luck. Become undeniable. Peace.